Dion ended up tweeting out something that's an employee steal my fiance's jewelry out of her bag and Rolex watches.
Footage just leaked showing JetBlue employees allegedly robbing Dion Dawkins of over $100,000 worth of jewelry. Dion was with his family on a first-class flight when he realized his fiance's jewelry was gone. The culprits have now been exposed, and you won't believe who was behind it. Let's break it down. The accusation. On the evening of Tuesday, February 17, 2026, Eastern Time, Dion Dawkins posted 68 words on his verified X account. The post went up at 10:50 p.m. Eastern. There were no images attached, no videos, no screenshots of a police report, no photos of luggage, no receipts, just text. The full post read, JetBlue makes no sense for security. I spent $10K to give my family an experience and put them all on first class of JetBlue Mint from LA to Fort Lauderdale, and employees steal my fiance's jewelry out of her bag. Rolex watches. That is the entire post, 68 words. And from those 68 words, every headline, every reaction video, every debate on social media about airline security and employee theft was constructed. Here is what Dawkins actually said and what he did not say. He said he spent $10,000. That number refers to the cost of the tickets. He booked his entire family on JetBlue Mint, the airline's premium lie-flat cabin product, flying from the Los Angeles area to Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. He said employees stole his fiance's jewelry out of her bag. He named Rolex watches, plural, as part of what was taken. Here is what he did not say. He did not put a dollar figure on the missing items. The $100K number that ended up in every headline did not come from Dawkins. He did not claim to have video footage. He did not mention filing a police report. He did not post photos of the items, receipts, serial numbers, insurance paperwork, or luggage tags. He did not say when he discovered the items were missing, and in the hours after posting, he did not follow up with any additional tweets, clarifications, or evidence. The post gained traction fast. Within the first few hours, it had over 1,000 likes, 83 reposts, 108 replies, and north of 63,000 views. But every piece of verifiable information in the public record traces back to this one post. NFL aggregator accounts picked it up within hours. Ace NFL Dove Kleiman, one of the most prominent, reposted the story with added framing. Bills star OL Dion Dawkins claims JetBlue employees stole over $100K in jewelry and Rolex watches from checked luggage. That repost introduced the $100K figure and the word robbed, neither of which appeared in Dawkins' original words. From that point, $100K became the headline number everywhere. Mainstream media followed within 12 to 24 hours. On the evening of February 18th, WARC Radio and WIVB News 4 in Buffalo published the tweet verbatim. By February 19th, the Daily Mail, Marca, Sports Illustrated, and Sports Kita had all published their own coverage. Every outlet framed it as an allegation. Every outlet noted no recovered items and no arrests, but the headlines and thumbnails stripped away the qualifiers. And by the time casual readers encountered the story on their feeds, it read as fact. The DeMafi Report, a popular Buffalo Bills YouTube channel, covered the story on their daily news roundup. The host read Dawkins' post aloud and shared his reaction.
He said, allegedly, of course, JetBlue makes no sense for security.
That word allegedly is important. Everything about this story at this stage remains an allegation. The host continued with what Dawkins wrote about the cost of the trip.
I spent $10,000 to give my family an experience and put them all in first class.
Then the host addressed Dawkins directly, speaking for the fan base.
My friend, Dion, we're rooting for you over here in Buffalo. I hope that you can find a solution to this.
And then he turned to the accused employees with the frustration that Bills fans across the country were feeling.
And how dare you from stealing from our beloved left tackle? How dare you?
The host closed the segment with his caveat, acknowledging that this remains unproven.
Two employees of JetBlue allegedly, of course.
JetBlue responded in 2 stages. That same night, their verified X account posted a public reply under Dawkins' tweet, "Hi there, we'd like to take a closer look at this with you. Please send us a DM with the reservation information." The next morning, February 19th, a JetBlue spokesperson provided a formal statement to WIVB News 4. "We take these reports very seriously and have launched a thorough investigation into the matter. In addition to conducting a comprehensive internal review, we will coordinate closely with law enforcement and other airport authorities to support their efforts and help ensure the issue is fully addressed. No findings, no recovered items, no employee names, no timeline." As of February 19th, 2026, that is where things stand. the fiancé, the family, and the flight. The jewelry that Dawkins says was stolen did not belong to him. It belonged to his fiancée, Diana Muhammad. Understanding who she is matters because it explains why the family was on that particular flight in that particular cabin, traveling between those particular cities in mid-February 2026. Muhammad is a Los Angeles native with a career that spans multiple industries. She is a licensed registered nurse who earned her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Brookline College in 2015 and then completed a Master of Science in Leadership in Healthcare. She previously worked as a nursing instructor at Chamberlain University before transitioning toward full-time modeling while continuing selective nursing practice. She started modeling at 18 and has appeared in magazine features, brand campaigns, and editorial shoots. She is also trained and worked as a Pilates instructor. Muhammad and Dawkins are engaged and share 3 children, a son named Dill and 2 daughters, Dakota and Delilah. In a November 2025 exclusive with People magazine, Muhammad detailed the emotional and logistical demands of supporting an NFL player's career while raising young children and sustaining her own professional identity. So when Dawkins wrote that employees stole my fiancé jewelry out of her bag, he was talking about the belongings of a registered nurse, a model, and the mother of his 3 children. Now, the timing of the flight matters. Just 2 weeks before the LA to Fort Lauderdale trip, Dawkins and Muhammad appeared together at the 15th annual NFL Honors on February 5, 2026, held at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco ahead of Super Bowl LX. They walked the red carpet together, were photographed by dozens of outlets, and attended related Super Bowl week events, including the Maxim Super Bowl party. On that red carpet, Dawkins spoke about what keeps him going after nearly a decade in the league.
I love how my family supports it. They enjoy seeing me get out there.
His family is not a background detail of his career. They are present, visible, and involved in every part of it. And the sacrifices that come with that visibility are constant. He described what it is like explaining his schedule to his kids.
Some days it's like, you're gonna be out there till 9 p.m., Dad? Yes, I'm gonna see you when you're in the bed with Papa or Coco, right? So
that is what it looks like to be an NFL family. Long hours, constant travel, public appearances, and the understanding that the job brings both extraordinary privilege and extraordinary disruption. The NFL Honors appearance was one of those moments of privilege. A couple dressed for the cameras, standing alongside the biggest names in the sport. Jewelry that appears on a red carpet at the NFL Honors is not costume jewelry. 2 weeks later, those same types of items were in a checked bag on a JetBlue flight. Dawkins spent $10,000 on the tickets. He booked the entire family on JetBlue, Mint, the most expensive domestic cabin the airline offers. And the expectation when you spend that kind of money is that the experience matches the price tag. But as we are about to break down, the premium branding of JetBlue Mint does not extend to the one area that mattered most on this trip. What happens to your bags once they leave your hands? Dawkins is a man who has spoken publicly about how much he values his family, about how his mother's reaction to his draft day phone call made him break down in tears, and about how the people of Buffalo have embraced him and his loved ones since the day he arrived.
They're one of a kind, they're blue collar, and they need us.
Dawkins said that about the people of Buffalo, but the sentiment applies to how he views loyalty in general. He gives it fully. He expects it in return. And when that trust is violated, whether by a person, an institution, or a corporation, he says so publicly. That is exactly what he did on the night of February 17, 2026. The gap between premium branding and baggage reality. JetBlue Mint is the airline's flagship domestic product. It is how JetBlue competes with legacy carriers on premium transcontinental routes. The cabin features lie-flat seats, privacy suites on certain aircraft, dedicated crew, priority boarding, priority deplaning, and an overall experience that the airline markets as something closer to a private jet feel than a commercial flight. When Dawkins paid $10,000 to put his entire family in Mint class from LA to Fort Lauderdale, he was buying the most elevated domestic travel experience JetBlue sells. The Mint experience extends to baggage in specific, measurable ways. Mint passengers receive 2 free checked bags per person, compared to most standard JetBlue fares where the second bag costs $60 to $105, depending on when and how it is purchased. Each of those bags can weigh up to 70 pounds, a full 20 pounds more than the 50-pound limit on standard fares. The maximum dimensions remain 62 linear inches per bag. Mint bags also receive priority handling tags, which means they are among the first to appear on the carousel at the destination airport. That is what you get for the premium price. More bags, heavier bags, faster delivery. What you do not get is fundamentally different handling security. And that distinction is where the entire promise of premium travel collapses when it comes to protecting the contents of your luggage. Here is what actually happens to a checked bag on a domestic JetBlue flight, regardless of whether the passenger paid $89 for a Blue basic fare or $10,000 for a family Mint booking. At check-in, whether at the counter, a kiosk, or curbside, the bag is tagged, weighed, and scanned into the system. From that point forward, the passenger does not see the bag again until it appears on the carousel at the destination. After check-in, the bag enters TSA security screening at the departure airport. At LAX, this means the bag is X-rayed and may be physically opened for inspection if the imaging flags something. TSA screening focuses on prohibited items, weapons, explosives, restricted substances, not on cataloging or safeguarding valuables. If a TSA agent opens a bag and sees Rolex watches inside, that agent's job is to check for threats, close the bag, and send it back into the system. There is no protocol for noting the presence of high-value items or flagging them for enhanced protection. After screening, the bag enters the airline's ground handling and sorting infrastructure. This is where things get particularly relevant to Dawkins's allegation. JetBlue contracts with third-party ground handlers at many airports, including LAX and Fort Lauderdale, for ramp and baggage operations. That means the people physically moving, sorting, and loading the bags may not be JetBlue employees at all. They may be contract workers employed by a ground handling company that services multiple airlines at the same facility. The bags pass through conveyor belts, automated sorting systems, and manual loading areas before being placed into the aircraft's cargo hold. Upon arrival at Fort Lauderdale, the process reverses. Bags are offloaded from the cargo hold, sorted through the arrival side baggage system, and delivered to the claim carousel. Mint bags with their priority tags are typically positioned to appear earlier on the belt, but earlier on the belt is the extent of the premium treatment. There is no segregated storage during the flight. There is no separate offloading crew for Mint luggage. There is no dedicated handling lane that keeps premium bags isolated from the rest. Once a bag is checked, it enters a shared system with dozens of handoff points, multiple workers with physical access, and limited individual accountability at each stage. This is the reality that exists behind the polished Mint marketing. The lie-flat seat, the privacy suite, the dedicated crew, all of that applies to the passenger's experience in the cabin. None of it applies to what happens to the passenger's belongings in the belly of the aircraft and on the tarmac. A bag checked by a Mint passenger follows the same physical journey as a bag checked by a passenger in the cheapest seat on the plane. And at every one of those handoff points, check-in agent, TSA screener, ground handler, ramp worker, cargo loader, arrival side sorter, carousel operator, a human being has physical access to the contents of that bag. The system relies on trust, background checks, and the deterrent effect of surveillance cameras that may or may not cover every square foot of every sorting area at every airport. When that trust breaks, as Dawkins alleges it did, the passenger discovers that the premium price they paid bought them a better seat, not a safer bag. This matters beyond just the Dawkins story because JetBlue Mint is specifically marketed to the kind of travelers who are most likely to be carrying valuables, business travelers with expensive electronics, families going to destination events with formal attire and jewelry, professionals who expect that paying more means receiving more protection across every aspect of the experience. The gap between that expectation and the actual handling process is where the vulnerability lives, and it is a gap that every airline, not just JetBlue, has been content to leave open, protected by the contractual language that explicitly tells passengers not to put valuables in checked bags while offering no alternative handling option for those who do. In Dawkins' case, the family was traveling from LA to Fort Lauderdale after a stretch of high-profile appearances in the Super Bowl LX orbit. The bags passed through two major airports with massive passenger volumes. The number of people who had physical access to those bags between the check-in counter at LAX and the carousel at Fort Lauderdale could easily be in the dozens. And at no point in that chain did the $10,000 price tag on the tickets provide any additional layer of security for the contents of those bags. The law, the contract, and the precedent. Even if every word of Dawkins' accusation is true, even if JetBlue employees opened his fiance's bag, removed the Rolex watches and jewelry, and walked away with them, the airline may owe the family nothing. That is not speculation. It is what the airline's own legally binding agreement says, what federal law permits, and what U.S. courts have enforced repeatedly for over a decade. Every passenger who buys a ticket on a U.S. domestic airline agrees to that carrier's contract of carriage. It is the binding legal document that governs the relationship between the airline and the traveler. Most passengers never read it. JetBlue's current version, last revised effective June 27, 2025, contains a section on baggage liability that addresses this situation in language that leaves no room for interpretation. The contract states that the carrier will not accept for carriage and will not assume liability for a specific list of items that includes jewelry, including watches, in checked or unchecked baggage. The excluded list also covers money, securities, cameras, electronics, computers, silverware, optical equipment, dental devices, keys, negotiable papers, business documents, paintings, antiques, artifacts, manuscripts, furs, heirlooms, and similar valuables. The contract then advises passengers to carry such valuable items personally. That means JetBlue is telling every passenger in writing before they fly, do not put jewelry in your checked bags. If you do, and it goes missing, the airline is not responsible. There is no paid option to override this. Airlines offer an excess valuation declaration, typically $1 per $100 of declared value, up to a maximum of $5,000 total coverage, that allows passengers to increase liability coverage on checked items. But that option is explicitly unavailable for excluded items like jewelry and watches. You cannot buy your way into coverage for the very items the airline has refused to cover. For items that are not on the excluded list, the U.S. Department of Transportation caps domestic airline liability at $4,700 per passenger. That is the maximum an airline must compensate for proven losses, documented with receipts, appraisals, and photos, minus depreciation. But for Rolex watches and jewelry, that cap is irrelevant. Excluded items receive zero automatic coverage. The theoretical maximum payout for excluded valuables under the contract of carriage is nothing. Now, someone could argue that employee theft should void the contractual exclusion. If the airline's own workers committed a crime, surely the contract cannot shield the airline from liability for that crime. That argument has been made in court. It lost. In Heckmott v. U.S. Transportation Security Administration, a 2017 federal ruling, plaintiffs alleged the theft of approximately $100,000 in jewelry from checked baggage on a domestic JetBlue flight from New York to Los Angeles. The court dismissed every claim: bailment, negligence, failure to supervise, and breach of contract. The Airline Deregulation Act preempted the state law tort claims because baggage handling falls under the category of airline services. The breach of contract claim failed because the contract of carriage expressly excluded jewelry. The court rejected the argument that deliberate theft by employees should remove the exclusion. The contract applied whether the loss was accidental or intentional. The parallels between the Heckmott case and Dawkins' situation are difficult to overstate. Same airline, comparable transcontinental route, similar alleged dollar amount, identical item category, and a federal court ruled that the passenger had no viable claim against JetBlue. This is not one isolated ruling. Decisions across multiple U.S. jurisdictions have reached the same conclusion. Airlines invoke contractual exclusions as standard practice, and courts enforce them under federal preemption. In a separate documented case, a passenger reported $158,000 in missing jewelry from a JetBlue flight. The result was identical. Claim denied based on the exclusion. Passenger directed to pursue personal insurance. There is, however, a distinction between civil and criminal liability. If specific employees are identified through JetBlue's internal investigation, security camera footage, baggage handling logs, or law enforcement work, those individuals can face criminal prosecution. Theft is theft regardless of what the contract of carriage says about the airline's financial obligations. Depending on the jurisdiction and the value of the stolen property, charges could range from misdemeanor theft to felony grand larceny. But criminal prosecution of individual employees does not automatically create civil liability for JetBlue as a corporation. The airline's obligation to compensate the passenger remains governed by the contract, and the contract excludes jewelry. In a wide-ranging conversation on Vlad TV about financial literacy and the traps that surround professional athletes, Dawkins himself articulated the dynamic that makes situations like this so frustrating.
They just need to understand that we're the prize. We're the prize that everybody wants, from the girls to the jewelers.
He was talking about the financial ecosystem that orbits NFL players, the advisors, the managers, the hangers-on who all want a piece. But the principle extends further than he probably intended when he said it.
To the financial advisors, to the managers, to the whoever.
The most probable path to financial recovery for the Dawkins family, if the items are not found, runs not through JetBlue's claims department, but through their own personal or homeowner's insurance policy. That is where the legal framework, as it currently exists, directs passengers who lose valuables from checked luggage. The airline's investigation may produce results. Law enforcement may identify individuals, but the money, if it comes at all, is far more likely to come from an insurance company than from JetBlue. Who Dion Dawkins is, from Rahway to the $60 million contract. To understand why this story landed the way it did, you have to understand the man who posted those 68 words. Because the reaction was not just about luggage or Rolex watches or airline security. The reaction was about Dion Dawkins, who he is, where he came from, and why the Bills fan base treats an accusation against him as an accusation against one of their own. Dawkins grew up in Rahway, New Jersey. In a sit-down interview on Vlad TV, recorded at his home in Miami, he described the town in terms that do not leave much to the imagination.
Rahway was a little bit of it all, you know. Rahway is separated by the train station.
On one side of those tracks, things were fine. On the other side, they were not. Dawkins described what lay beyond that dividing line.
So once you go past that train station, you know, it's a place where you really don't want to be.
He was the youngest of 5 children. His father worked as a brewmaster at Anheuser-Busch. His mother worked at the airport. They drove to work the same route every morning, splitting off at different highway exits while pretending they could see each other across the lanes. It was a 2-parent, working-class household where nothing was handed to anyone. Dawkins was not a model student. He was in the smaller classrooms, the ones for kids who needed extra help or who acted like they did not want to learn, so they would get placed there. He stole a teacher's purse and used her credit card to order Domino's during the 555 deal. He got caught. He ran with a group he described as a fighting gang, organized daily brawls in the back stairwell of the school during lunch period.
And like my little gang, like it was really like a fighting gang. Like we would just fight.
He went through a phase of selling weed, which he described as something most kids in his circle did, before realizing it was pointless. Football became his way out, but it was not the straight line that draft day highlight packages suggest. He was not a football star in high school. He was not recruited by major programs. When the interviewer asked if schools were interested in him, Dawkins' answer was one word.
So you weren't recruited heavily by a bunch of schools or
Zero.
nothing?
0 offers from the schools that matter. The only interest came from programs like Bethune-Cookman, and Dawkins admitted he did not even understand the difference between conferences at the time. He had to go to Hargrave Military Academy in Virginia, a prep school designed to get grades and SAT scores up to NCAA clearance levels.
But yeah, so after like high school, I had to go to prep school. I went to a military prep.
He eventually landed at Temple University, where he started as a right guard, moved to right tackle, and broke his foot against Louisville. He was building something, slowly, without fanfare or national attention. And then, in 2015, he was arrested. Dawkins and a teammate went to a club in Philadelphia called 1800. His teammate, Chris Myrick, described by Dawkins as the only white guy in an all-black party, was confronted and hit by a group. Dawkins reacted.
And as I'm standing there, I just see a hand come across, and I see Myrick go down.
The fight escalated. Dawkins broke the other man's orbital bone and gave him a concussion. The man pressed charges, aggravated assault, a felony.
So I had to go to jail, right? I got locked up.
He spent 2 days in a Philadelphia jail. He was a big, light-skinned kid with a blonde mohawk, terrified that he would have to fight again inside and catch more charges. He bailed out. He got a second chance, and he made a decision about what to do with it.
Once I got in trouble and I was let off, I said, cool. I said, I got a second chance. I'ma be what I'ma be.
He went to the NFL Combine. He worked out privately for the 49ers, Panthers, Broncos, and Colts. On draft day 2017, the Buffalo Bills selected him 63rd overall, a 4-year, $4.18 million contract with a $1.18 million signing bonus. The first person he called was his mother. She had no idea the deal was done. He was crying. She thought something was wrong.
You know, it's all love, but I called her and she had no idea. She had no idea.
She asked if she needed to come up there. He told her they were happy tears. And then she said something that stopped him.
And I was like, no, Ma, no. These are happy tears. These are happy tears. And I told her, and she said,
his mother told him he did it. Dawkins corrected her immediately.
Dion, but you did it. And I corrected her and I said, Mom, I didn't
do it yet.
That is the mindset. Getting the contract was not the accomplishment, earning it was. And 9 years later, after 143 games, 137 starts, 5 Pro Bowls, and a $60 million extension, he is still operating with the same framework. When his relationship with Josh Allen was forming in 2018, it was awkward at first. A city kid from Jersey and a farm kid from Fireball, California, trying to figure out how to trust each other.
And then, you know, like Josh is not a country boy, but he's a farm boy. You know, he's a farm boy.
Dawkins took Allen to events, sat with him, brought him into the fold. The relationship grew, and Dawkins said publicly that he would die for Allen, a statement that he almost made, literal when his finger was nearly sliced off in a game against the Dolphins. He came out of the locker room stitched up, numbed, and taped, and went back on the field. When the Bills signed him to the extension, reporters asked what it meant to be named a franchise left tackle. He did not celebrate. He said it was time to earn it.
It just means that it's time to go earn it. You know, it's definitely time to.
He talked about players who get paid and then fall off, and swore that would not be him.
Like hungrier, because we hear about guys all of the time that get paid and then they fall off.
That is who Dion Dawkins is, a kid from Rahway who shoveled driveways and stole purses, then turned a second chance into a 9-year NFL career and a $60 million contract. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.